Babe, my flight to Chicago is severely delayed, so don't wait up for me, my husband whispered into his phone, sighing heavily to really sell the exhaustion, while I stood exactly 2 steps behind him in the priority boarding line for a flight to Paris. I didn't gasp. I didn't drop my carry-on bag. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the back of his familiar navy blue trench coat, listening to his voice echo through my cell phone while he wrapped his free arm around the waist of my business partner. Yes, my business partner, Chloe. For 8 years, I had built a life with Marcus. We had a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Boston, a shared golden retriever, and what I thought was a foundation of absolute trust. While he climbed the corporate ladder at his wealth management firm, I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into opening Lumina Aesthetics, a high-end dermatology and wellness clinic in the Back Bay. 2 years ago, the clinic was expanding so fast that I was working 80-hour weeks and desperately needed help. I brought Chloe in. She was 31, ambitious, and had a brilliant portfolio. I gave her 30% equity in my life's work. I invited her to my home for Thanksgiving. I trusted her with my clients, my finances, and my sanity. And apparently, I trusted her with my husband. I wasn't even supposed to be at Logan International Airport that evening. I was scheduled to be on a flight to a massive medical symposium in Miami, but a tropical storm warning grounded all southbound flights at the absolute last minute. Marcus had packed his bags that morning for what he swore was a crucial 3-day compliance audit in Chicago. Since my trip was canceled, I thought it would be romantic to catch him at his gate before he took off. Maybe grab a quick coffee and give him a kiss goodbye. I checked our shared family location app, saw his dot sitting at Terminal E, the international terminal, and thought it was just a GPS glitch. It wasn't a glitch. When I walked up to gate E4, my heart genuinely stopped beating. There was Marcus, my practical, predictable husband, standing in line for a 9-hour overnight flight to Charles de Gaulle. And pressed against his side, wearing a designer silk scarf I had actually bought her for her birthday, laughing at something he said, was Chloe. I stood behind a pillar and watched him lean down and kiss her. Not a friendly platonic peck, a deep, lingering, horribly familiar kiss. The kind of kiss he hadn't given me in over a year. My hands started shaking so violently I thought I was going to drop my phone and shatter the screen. But then a cold, icy calm suddenly washed over my entire body. I didn't scream. I didn't run up and cause a scene to give them the satisfaction of calling me a crazy, hysterical wife. Instead, I raised my phone and snapped 4 crystal clear photos of them kissing, hugging, and holding their matching first-class boarding passes. Then I dialed his number. I watched from just a few feet away as he pulled his phone from his pocket, looked at the screen, rolled his eyes at Chloe, and answered. "Hey, honey," he said, using his best stressed husband voice. Then came the lie about the Chicago delay. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that," I replied, keeping my voice perfectly steady, even though I was biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. "Make sure you get some rest. I love you." "Love you too. They're calling my boarding group. Gotta go." He hung up. I immediately opened my email, attached the photos, and forwarded them to my personal attorney with a subject line that just said, "Emergency, file for divorce and draft a partnership dissolution." Then I opened my banking app. Marcus's Chicago trip was suspiciously timed right after he asked to use my clinic's corporate American Express Platinum card to book his flights, claiming his firm's corporate card was temporarily locked due to a security breach, and he'd reimburse me by Friday. I had trusted him, but right there, staring back at me on the screen, was a pending charge of $12,400 to Air France. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a tight, vicious little smile. I hit the button to report the corporate card as stolen, freezing the account instantly. I watched them inch closer to the gate agent. Marcus had his passport out, looking like the king of the world. The gate agent smiled and scanned Chloe's ticket. A green light beeped. She walked through the turnstile, waiting for him on the other side. Then, Marcus confidently handed over his phone to scan his digital boarding pass. Beep. But it wasn't the happy green beep. It was a loud, aggressive red buzz. The gate agent frowned, tapping her keyboard with long acrylic nails. "Sir, it appears the payment method used for this ticket was just flagged for fraud and locked by the primary account holder. The reservation has been suspended." Marcus's face turned the color of a bruised plum. "That's impossible. Try it again." "I can't, sir. You'll need to provide another form of payment for the $12,400 fare right now or step aside." I watched Chloe's perfect Botoxed forehead wrinkle in irritation as the line of passengers behind them started to grumble. Marcus frantically patted his pockets, pulling out his personal wallet. I knew for a fact his personal checking account only had about $2,000 in it because he insisted on tying up all his bonuses in illiquid investments. He was going to have to max out his personal Visa just to get on that plane and save face in front of his mistress. Then my phone buzzed in my hand. It was him. I took a deep breath, channeled every ounce of willpower I had, and answered. "Babe," he hissed, his voice tight with panic. "Did you do something to the corporate Amex?" "Oh my God, Marcus, yes!" I practically shouted, injecting fake, frantic worry into my voice. "The fraud department just texted me. Someone tried to charge over 12 grand to Air France at Logan Airport. I told them you were in Chicago, so the card had to be stolen. They froze the account immediately. I was so scared someone had stolen your identity. Are you okay? Did you make it to your hotel?" There was a dead, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I watched him physically deflate from 40 feet away. He couldn't exactly tell me he was the one trying to board a flight to Paris without confessing to the entire double life. Yeah, he choked out, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm at the hotel in Chicago. Good catch, honey. Look, I gotta go call my bank." "Okay, sweetie, have a good night. I love you." I hung up and finally turned my back on him. I walked out of Terminal E, the cool Boston evening air hitting my flushed face. I got into my Audi, locked the doors, and sat there for 20 minutes just staring at the steering wheel. My hands gripped the leather so hard my knuckles were white. The illusion of my perfect marriage was dead, lying somewhere on the floor of the international terminal. But I didn't cry. I was entirely done crying over a man who could lie to my face while draining my business account to impress the woman I hired. Instead, I started my engine. He thought he was going on a romantic 3-day Parisian getaway with my business partner. He had no idea he had just given me 72 uninterrupted hours to completely dismantle his life. The very next morning at 8:30 sharp, I was sitting in the mahogany-paneled office of Eleanor Vance, widely known as the most ruthless divorce and corporate litigator in Suffolk County. I slid my phone across her desk, showing her the crystal-clear photos of my husband's hands all over Chloe at gate E4. Eleanor adjusted her silver wire-rimmed glasses, zooming in on the boarding passes. "Well, he's an absolute idiot, and she is a corporate liability. What do you want to do?" "I want my clinic back," I said, my voice cold and steady in a way that surprised even me. "I want to trigger the moral turpitude and gross misconduct clauses in my partnership agreement with Chloe to strip her equity. And as for Marcus, I want him to walk away with absolutely nothing." Eleanor smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. She leaned across her desk and said, "Let's ruin their weekend." I spent the next 72 hours turning my grief into an absolute weapon. While Marcus was presumably sweating through the streets of Paris, frantically swiping his personal Visa with a 29% interest rate just to keep his mistress draped in champagne, I was dismantling his reality brick by brick. First, I hired a private investigator who pulled the security footage from the alley behind my own clinic. It took him exactly 4 hours to confirm that my husband's late nights at the office actually consisted of him parking 3 blocks away and slipping into Lumina Aesthetics through the staff entrance, every Thursday for 2.5 years, right under my nose. Under Eleanor's strict advisement, I gathered every financial document, changed every shared password, and transferred exactly half of our joint savings, $48,210, into a separate, untouchable account. Then I called a locksmith. By Sunday evening, the deadbolts on my beautiful suburban Colonial were changed, and everything Marcus owned was neatly packed into 42 heavy-duty black trash bags and delivered directly to his mother's front porch. Monday morning arrived with a crisp, brutal clarity. Marcus texted me at 7 a.m., landed in Chicago, heading straight to the office, exhausted. "See you tonight, love you." I didn't reply. I knew exactly where he was because his Uber app was still linked to our shared family email. He was on his way back from Logan Airport. Meanwhile, Chloe was scheduled to lead our all-staff Monday morning meeting at the clinic at 9 a.m. At 8:45 a.m., I sent Marcus a frantic text. Emergency at Lumina. Massive water leak in the lobby. Please come help. I don't know how to shut off the main valve. He rushed through the glass doors at 9:15 a.m., breathless, carrying his ridiculous leather briefcase. Chloe was standing in the reception area holding a clipboard, looking perfectly tanned and rested from her long weekend visiting family in Vermont. When Marcus saw her, his shoulders relaxed visibly. He thought it was just a plumbing issue. He thought his two worlds were still safely separated. But there was no water leak. The clinic was completely empty of patients. There was just me, Eleanor, and a very large, very unsmiling security guard I had hired for $45 an hour. "Babe, where's the leak?" Marcus asked, panting slightly as he jogged up to the front desk. I looked him dead in the eye. "Oh, there's no leak, Marcus, but there is a massive breach of contract." Eleanor didn't waste a single second. She stepped forward and handed Chloe a thick, heavy manila envelope. "Chloe," Eleanor said, her voice echoing off the marble floors, "pursuant to Section 4, Clause B of your partnership agreement, your equity in Lumina Aesthetics is hereby revoked due to gross misconduct, moral turpitude, and actions detrimental to the practice. You are being bought out for exactly $1. You have 10 minutes to clear out your desk, or my friend here will physically remove you from the premises." Chloe turned the color of spoiled milk. The clipboard slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. "You can't do this," she shrieked, her composed facade completely shattering. "You're acting crazy. This is illegal." Marcus immediately puffed out his chest, stepping between us to play the hero. "Babe, what the hell is going on? Have you lost your mind? Why are you attacking her?" I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I calmly opened my designer tote bag, pulled out 4 glossy 8x10 printed photographs of them practically swallowing each other at gate E4, and fanned them out across the pristine white reception desk like a deck of cards. "Did you enjoy the compliance audit in Chicago, Marcus?" I asked, my voice dropping to a low, lethal whisper. "Because from here, it looks an awful lot like Terminal E. Tell me, did you have fun paying for Air France on your personal credit card? Or did you have to ask your mommy for a loan in the middle of the airport?" Marcus froze. I watched the realization physically slam into him. He looked at the photos, then at Eleanor, and finally at me. All the color drained from his face until he looked like a corpse. I can explain," he stammered, his eyes darting around the room looking for an exit. And then he did exactly what cowards always do. He took a massive step away from Chloe and pointed a shaky finger at her. "It meant nothing. She means nothing to me. She threw herself at me. I swear to God." Chloe gasped in pure horror, her jaw hitting the floor as the man who had just taken her to Paris instantly threw her under the bus to save his own skin. "Save it for the judge," I told him, soaking in every second of his pathetic panic. "I filed for divorce on Friday. The locks on our house are changed. Your golf clubs and your cheap suits are currently sitting in garbage bags in your mother's driveway. Do not ever speak to me again unless it is through my lawyer." I watched the security guard step forward, crossing his massive arms. Chloe didn't say another word. She grabbed her designer bag, the one I now knew Marcus had paid for with funds he was siphoning from my hard work, and practically sprinted out the glass doors, her heels clicking frantically against the pavement. Marcus tried to step toward me, tears actually welling up in his eyes to try and manipulate me one last time, but Eleanor held up a single, perfectly manicured hand. "If you take one more step toward my client," Eleanor said smoothly, "I will have you arrested for trespassing. Get out." And he did. He walked out of the clinic he had tried to drain, a broken, pathetic man with maxed out credit cards and nowhere to sleep but his childhood bedroom. The divorce took exactly 7 months. Because I had caught him attempting to use company funds for his little Parisian getaway, and because Eleanor is an absolute shark in the courtroom, the settlement was a bloodbath. I kept the house in Boston, 100% equity in Lumina Aesthetics, and my entire retirement account. Marcus was saddled with the remaining debt on his personal credit cards, which, thanks to his expensive taste in mistresses, had ballooned to nearly $40,000. I heard through the grapevine that Chloe dumped him 3 weeks after our confrontation. Apparently, a disgraced wealth manager living with his mother and driving a 10-year-old sedan wasn't quite the sugar daddy she had bargained for. Today, Lumina Aesthetics is opening its 3rd location. I am 41, wildly successful, completely at peace, and absolutely untouchable. Sometimes I sit in my beautiful, quiet house, pour myself a glass of expensive Cabernet, and think about that night at Logan Airport. He told me his flight was delayed, but looking back, it was my life that had been delayed. I just finally decided to take off without him.